Esteemed moderator, President of the ACSPN, Vice Chancellor Professor Umar Rupati, other distinguished officers and members of the association, panel members, special guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm delighted to join you on this your 10th annual conference of the association and to present as lead speaker in this opening panel. I was delighted to accept the invitation presented by Professor Nosa Owens-Ibe, your distinguished Secretary General, my friend and colleague. Although I speak to you today from Botswana, I am from Jamaica, and I'm pleased to honor the historical affinities long existing between your region and the African people of Jamaica and the Caribbean. So I want to speak on the very topic of the rise of generative AI, opportunities, risks, and challenges for the Global South within the context of your conference and panel theme. So let me begin with an overview of the areas I plan to cover in this presentation. I would like to touch on the techno-social and economic contexts, including the rise and potential of generative AI and the question about who benefits. I want to look at the geopolitical context and look at whether AI is becoming a new geocolonial command and control system, or is it a more level playing field? And how will the Global South be impacted? We next look at the literacy for AI and augmented creativity, matters relating to education and culture. And then finally, the risks associated with AI in terms of humanity, the policy conundrums, and regulatory and ethical guidelines. Artificial intelligence, as you know, gives machines the ability to model the human brain and learn from pre-existing data and processes. Computers with these advanced technologies are trained to complete complex tasks by processing vast data sets and recognizing the meaningful patterns within them. Essentially, where we are now is that data as input and output are at the heart of AI. And a key question is, what data sources are the systems trained on? Do they replicate Western biases and social and gender disparities? When we speak about generative AI, we are talking about a step change in the evolution of artificial intelligence. Although AI has been around for decades, it is only in the late 2022 that the rise of ChatGPT has caused great awe and apprehensions. One of the breakthroughs with AI and with Gen AI is its development of models, some of which can be supervised, some of which partially supervised, and some unsupervised. In other words, the machine has now learned how to learn. This has given rise to global concerns about existential threats as AI acquires the ability to more easily and quickly process a large amount of what is called unlabeled data, possibly in an unsupervised manner. So again, for those who may not be familiar, ChatGPT stands for the Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And following the launch of ChatGPT, OpenAI has recently launched the GPT-4 model, with markedly improved capabilities. One of the key elements that ChatGPT and the GPT models must have is what is called capture diversity to allow for optimal generation quality. So AI can write new text, compose music, create computer code, create digital art, and all of these things at an astounding speed and at scales that exceed human capabilities. However, defects in such models can create data biases, can create imaging inaccuracies, and visual misrepresentations. Notwithstanding all of these prospects and challenges, AI can generate possibly a new economic boom for some, something that has already started in many of the developed economies. According to the McKinsey report of 2023, AI can generate between 2.6 trillion and 4.4 trillion US dollars annually, adding to the global economy in sectors such as marketing, sales, software engineering, and R&D. Africa and the Global South must be participating and benefiting from this projected rise in value and in productivity, and not just be victims or suffer the consequences by being impacted by the labor force issues that are bound to arise. According to Statista, the economies of the industrialized world or the industrializing world are likely to suffer significant elimination of jobs, as you can see, in China, in India, in the United States, in Japan, Mexico, and Germany. But it is argued by the ILO that it is in some ways also a process of job repurposing, but that in any event, the professional categories who are likely to be most impacted in terms of their exposure likelihood would be clerical support workers, technicians and associate professionals, service and sales workers, managers at a certain level, skilled agricultural workers, and so on. The ones least likely to be impacted are deemed elementary occupations such as plumbing, hairdressing, and the like, craft, and so on. The ILO predicts that the clerical jobs, which are going to be most heavily impacted, will have a highly gendered effect because it is women who engage in many of these clerical occupations. These studies underline the need for proactive policies in Africa that focus on job quality and that ensure fair transitions and that are based on dialogue and adequate regulation. So on to the geopolitical context. There is a risk that AI is already replicating global disparities and possibly could generate a new round of neocolonial dominance based on the control of big data. According to Usal Sabaz, the most critical risk stems from the fundamentally centralizing and monopolizing characteristics of AI, considering its requirements of scale, both for companies and for countries. This in turn is likely to create winner-take-all economies, the principal beneficiaries of which would be data giants like the United States and China, and those other developing countries which are data-rich. And for a lot of the other countries, it is the prospect possibly of what is described as data colonialism. In the age of AI, it is the companies and countries that produce and have access to big data that will set the rules and that will dominate. We are speaking, for example, about China having the highest rate of exploring and deploying AI as at 2022, followed by India and Singapore. These two latter countries had a nearly 60% deployment rate, China being higher than these. When accounting only for exploration of AI, the leading nations would be Canada and the United States, but China has stolen a march in respect of the implementation aspect. Now we wonder, what is the scenario in the global south and particularly in countries of Africa? Well, the use of AI-powered learning tools requires modern technology, including offering affordable internet access, computers, smartphones, and a reliable supply of electricity. It also needs what's been called effective access, which is the digital literacy, now the AI literacy, and affordable internet connectivity. According to the Internet World Stats, Africa's internet penetration rate is 43% of the population, accounting for 11% of the global internet usage. In Nigeria's case, to take a particular country, your country, we are speaking about a 55.4% penetration rate, which is just below the global average. In reality, in Africa, the Caribbean, and elsewhere, many users do enjoy the internet, but for short spells, because they cannot afford the cost associated with access that can enhance productivity, drive advocacy, or education. So this dashboard of the kind of global ranking indicates the dominance of the industrial north and the challenges that are faced in the global south, particularly in Africa. This digital divide is something which continues to be of concern. But it's interesting to note that, let's say 10, 15 years ago, the least developed countries were way behind. They are increasing at a much faster rate than in the industrial north, which are countries adding just 3, 4, 5% over the last decade because of saturation levels. What is likely to happen then is that there is going to be additional and increasing rush for investment in those parts of the world where penetration levels are still relatively low, meaning investment in internet and related service delivery. When we look at the internal internet divides, we are looking at the Internet of Things reflecting the social, gender, economic, and geographical disparities within countries that the digital divide displays internationally. The Internet of Things activities range from vast volumes of domestic appliances, video production equipment, and so on. And to the extent that these are facilities that are affordable to certain sections of the population, the IoT will be skewed and reflected in that respect. Let's turn next to the educational, media, and cultural aspects of AI, transforming pedagogy, analytics, and art. We can look, for example, at some of the analytical possibilities where AI can facilitate now predictive analytics in a much more effective manner, asking what is going to happen, diagnostic analytics, why did it happen, descriptive analytics, what has happened, and can create operational reports giving an idea of what is happening. So we are seeing increasing value up that scale and moving towards information optimization using AI-enabled analytical sophistication. There are some challenges in relation to AI and the media sector. AI presents challenges in relation to authentication of online reports that may be coming from AI robots. Can be concerns about retaining original news reporting value against AI tendencies to capture and integrate without attribution or payment. There are intellectual property right issues, such as those faced by the Hollywood writers and other guilds at the moment about moral rights and control of their content. The risk of audiences believing AI over human journalists, even when AI, in instances, may be offering a higher error rate than otherwise would be the case. AI-generated content becoming further integrated and scraped into other AI systems, doubling down on its own output. And of course, online journalists being unable to cope with the pace of AI summaries that are then prioritized by search engines that are owned by AI systems. So we have to reflect when we turn from media to education on the idea expressed by Richard Riley many years ago when he said, training institutions are expected to educate students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet. This is the conundrum that we face in the context of this AI environment. Education is one of the main sites of debate and discussion about the impact of AI. The integration of AI and education, in one perspective, can be seen as revolutionizing traditional teaching methods and opening up new avenues for personalized learning. And according to one commentator, Divya Bhatia, AI algorithms can create tailored lesson plans, adaptive assessments, and content recommendations, ensuring that each student receives personalized instructions. It is argued that by catering to individual needs, AI enhances student engagement, boosts learning outcomes, and fosters a more efficient educational experience. Many educators and artists share the legitimate apprehension that AI, rather than providing all of those great outcomes, is really posing challenges for creative and academic integrity and for the verification of scholarly artistic originality. Akbari, for example, shares that apprehension and regards ChatGPT, for example, as a looming shadow that poses a threat to the authentication of the work of students and of scholars globally. One concern is the lack of attribution and the frequency of errors or inaccuracies in AI reproductions, and about the dated and generic nature of some of the AI text responses. Akbari argues, however, that despite these concerns, with positive shifts in perspective, we can harness the very AI technology that threatens us to serve as our shield, allowing us to safely steer away from the epicenter of this impending storm. So we can think about which of the options or whether it is a combination of the concern and the implementation. While we look, for example, at AI in the cultural sphere, and particularly in music and other areas, the creative industry is rapidly transforming, with innovator and creative specialists arguing that while there is still debate about AI's role in the creative field, There is no doubt that it has the potential to revolutionize the way we do things and in generating ideas. AI can assist in the creation of new musical instruments, for example. One case cited was of Google and the University of Toronto developing the NSynth Super instrument. This instrument uses machine learning to create entirely new sounds that are a mixture of different musical instruments, opening up entirely new musical possibilities. The challenge, of course, is who owns the patent or the intellectual property of such outputs if the creative works of a variety of designers and artists have been sampled in the process of that design. So can we be using AI as a partner, or is it one of the risks and challenges that we are seeing? Many teachers are conducting grading and assessments using AI. AI-facilitated gamification and simulation tools are also being used more and more in education. AI is being used for translations and article summaries. With intelligent tutor systems that are available online, AI can act as a virtual tutor, providing students with real feedback and guidance. Teachers can better understand student responses and adapt accordingly, and gaps and difficulties by students can be more easily diagnosed. So, colleagues, when we look at all the challenges and issues relating to AI in education, I think there's no chance of turning our backs on AI in education or banning it from our students or from creatives indefinitely. Educators and artists have over the years adapted to changes, ranging from the calculator to the arrival of the internet and Wikipedia. Of course, there are challenges, but remedial tools are often incorporated into the packages of transition. Adaptive approaches to valuing creativity and alternative classwork approaches, assignments, evaluative methods, all of these will need to be reconsidered or reconceptualized, including some of the assessment tools that we have often used. Many of you are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, which classifies how we deliver education in various levels of depth and intensity. There's a new, well, not so new version of this taxonomy, which places create at the apex of that pyramid and enabling teachers to think more deeply, to categorize their objectives, and to create new ideas and products and ways of doing things that asks what or why, but also how and how to, as important ways of intervening. As you can see in this Bloom's taxonomy representation, create is at the apex. Then we evaluate, analyze, apply, and so on. AI is ideally poised to assist us with those upper levels in the creative, evaluative, and analytical aspects. As you can see, the older Bloom's taxonomy was simply about evaluation, the newer one highlighting creating. So in a world which is so rapidly changing, educators must also change and think differently. Students are making additional demands, and institutions are needing to update their programming, their content, their courses. Courses, for example, in data analytics, AI applications for business and science, courses like ethics in science and technology, web management and cybersecurity, digital production and communication, AI content creation. These are important courses that we must begin to contemplate, including within the framework of our teaching remit. AI could play a role in the development and delivery of such innovative courses, in circumstances where many of our courses have been on our books for a very long time, not having been refreshed or renewed in recent years. According to Marilyn Ferguson, power is changing hands from dying hierarchies to living networks. So it's no longer the sage on the stage that matters so much in the classroom as this interactive network of co-learning and co-teaching that can enhance people's knowledge levels and build capacity. So if I turn to the final group of thoughts that I wanted to bring to your attention, it's about building ethical guide rails and monitoring against the adverse effects that AI could have, not only in our industries, but to humanity itself. Artificial intelligence is a two-edged sword. It has created new opportunities, fostered greater access to technology for certain businesses and so on. But it requires active protection and human oversight against misuse, existential risks, cybersecurity threats, and other detriments. Personal and cultural hostility online is rife. Intellectual property challenges abound, and disadvantages of vulnerable communities taking place with individuals and enterprises not adequately protected. This is where we must be thinking about regulatory and guiding rails so that we cannot allow some of our community to be disadvantaged. The European Union has taken a lead in establishing what they call the Artificial Intelligence Act of 2023, first of its kind in the global space. It ranks AI practices and content into actionable categories, namely unacceptable risks, high risks, and low risk in terms of practices and content. It proposes, for example, a full ban on AI for biometric surveillance, emotional recognition, and predictive policing. Generative AI systems like ChatGPT must disclose that the content was AI generated. There must be some symbol that identifies the source of these content. AI systems used to influence voters in elections would be considered high risk. The Act introduces a European Artificial Intelligence Board to promote national cooperation and ensure compliance with the regulations. In other countries, in the United States, for example, no legislation yet, but some congressional hearings on AI risks have been taking place with content and model developers. In China also, who is a high-level player in the AI land space, it has not developed any formal legislation yet, although new regulatory rules now prohibit use of AI in China without watermarks on the relevant images. Within the context of Africa and the Global South, we know that as of April 2023, this year, only 3 African countries, Egypt, Kenya, and Mauritius, are known to have developed formal AI policing strategies. Some other African countries are said to be in the process of developing them. In the case of Nigeria, I have read that discussions are taking place by stakeholders in relation to what should happen in relation to AI in your country. But there's a need for a faster pace of legislative and regulatory rulemaking globally and in our continent as the commercial and private creators move at a rapid pace to capture markets and leave users unclear or exposed to some unacceptable AI risks. One of which, for example, is deepfake, an AI-based technology used to produce authentic-looking video or audio content by digital manipulation to create false images, speech, and scenes, and this must be regulated. Deepfake disinformation is facilitated by use of innocent pre-existing video images, applying facial recognition technology and AI machine learning technologies. This is raising issues of the right to control one's identity, one's speech, one's image, and one's likeness. As I move to conclude these thoughts, I invite us to let us adopt the AI technologies to help to meet the opportunities of our time in order to enhance productivity and creativity. But we must also be enacting sensible guardrails for human protection. We must balance carefully the risks and the opportunities. While using the AI tools, we must not allow these advanced technologies to dominate human lives and human agency and ultimately threaten humanity itself. I close with a call for a much more proactive vigilance of AI, inciting the remarkably prescient observations of Henry Thoreau, who warned humanity long before AI that we must never become the tool of our tools. We must never become the tool of our tools. Thank you.